Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the licensing hearing for Chaiwala of 241 Brompton Road, SW3 2EP. This hearing is live streamed and will be available for viewing afterwards on YouTube. I'd just like to mention first, there's only two on the panel today because Councillor Judith Blakeman is feeling unwell. However, we are quorate. We need two. I'd like to mention also, for good order, that when you speak, please speak into the microphone closely. Don't bother to look at the people who you want to address, who might be behind you or to the side. You have to speak into the mic. Admire the microphone. Don't worry about anybody else so we can hear everything. I'm Dorish Metterling. I'm Vice Chair of the Licensing Committee, and I'm chairing this subcommittee today. And I have no interest to declare. I'd like to ask the others to my right and left to introduce themselves.
So my name is Marie-Therese Rossi, and I am Councillor for Redcliffe Ward, and I have no interest to declare. Thank you.
I'm Lindsay Lemazurier, and I'm the legal advisor to this afternoon's committee.
And could I please ask the other officers to introduce themselves?
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Paul Phelan. I'm the licensing officer for RBKC.
Thanks.
My name's Anne Wright. I'm the clerk to the committee today.
My name's Emma Taylor, and I work in governance services.
Good afternoon, Luke Curran, Governance Services.
Thanks very much. I'll go through the procedure. Each party who has filed a representation has up to 10 minutes to present the case and up to 5 minutes to ask questions. Applicants will put the case first, followed by any responsible authorities. I don't think there will be any here today, but anyway, that's the procedure. And then other persons who might be objectors or supporters. After each case, questions will be asked of the parties by the committee and then by other parties on the opposing side who are present and permitted to speak. There will be no summing up, and no summing up is allowed. I will then ask the licensing officer to introduce the application and confirm if there had been any additional documentation circulated. And before the applicant presents the case, we will ask if there have been any amendments to the application. And the applicant, as everyone else, gets 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes to present the case. The committee will ask questions of the applicant, and the legal advisor will, if necessary, also ask questions. And questions can come from responsible authorities and other persons. Other persons' cases will then be presented, so objectors' cases, again up to 10 minutes. Questions will be asked in a similar fashion and they can quiz each other. And after that we'll do the session on conditions. And finally, as regards a decision, we will retire to a private session to discuss the decision, and we will revert within 5 days with a summary decision. The summary decision will take effect immediately, and after that, at some point fairly soon, I hope, we will issue the full decision. The full decision is essentially the summary plus minutes of the meeting. So let's begin. And the licensing officer, Mr. Phelan, would you like to present the case, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, all. Today's application has been submitted by Chaiwala of London Limited for the grant of a premises licence at Chaiwala 241 Brompton Road, London, SW3 2EP. Today's application originally sought a premises licence to permit late-night refreshment until midnight, Monday to Sunday, with 2 additional NSTs, non-standard timings. The first non-standard timing sought would permit late-night refreshment throughout the night on New Year's Eve. The second non-standard timing sought would permit an extension of late-night refreshments until 2 a.m. during the holy month of Ramadan. I can confirm that this application did originally attract a representation from Mr. Labar, a senior officer within the Council's noise team. However, Mr. Labar withdrew his objection following the applicant's agreement to include those conditions detailed within the additional papers available today. Both parties have also agreed to limit deliveries so that they take place via the front entrance only. The licensing authority has received 3 representations from residents' associations, namely the Egerton Mews Residents Association, the Knightsbridge Association, and the Brompton Association. Full copies are attached to Appendix D with a summary of these representations found on pages 23 to 30 of today's papers. Council records indicate that the premises received no noise complaints over the preceding 24 months. Council records also indicate that no temporary event notices had been submitted within the same timescale. That concludes a summary of today's application. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much. But wasn't there additional documentation that you might want to refer to? Because I think there's been a modification. Oh, so would you like to speak a bit more slowly?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem,
Thanks.
Chair. Thank you. So essentially there was an agreement reached between the applicant and the objecting officer from Noise, Mr. Labar. They've essentially agreed to 6 conditions as stated on the additional papers available today, with the additional agreement that deliveries take place via the front entrance, which I believe is on the Brompton Road.
Right. Thank you very much. So would the applicant like to state the case? And you have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And my name is Asita Ranatungo. I'm the barrister representing the premises. I have Mr. Abdul Kadri here with me, who is the operations director for Chaiwala. And as you've heard, it's an application for a premises license effectively to allow the premises to have late night refreshment until midnight Monday to Sunday. And the operating hours have been amended in agreement with the environmental health officer so that they also finish at midnight Monday to Sunday. That's a summary, but that's where we are. There are also applications for non-standard hours. Again, they've been amended in conjunction with the environmental health officer. On New Year's Eve, we seek to have late night refreshment until 2 a.m., not the full standard hours that you might have for New Year's Eve. And then during the holy month of Ramadan and Eid at the end of Ramadan, of course, we seek late night refreshment until 1 o'clock. So we've curtailed those hours as well from what we originally applied for. The premises is a cafe restaurant with a delivery service. But you might ask, what is Chaiwala itself? Chaiwala, as you may know, is a tea person, traditionally from South Asia or India. It is a fast-growing global brand. We do have premises in Canada and Scotland, soon to open in Dubai and hopefully the US. But in terms of its origins, it started out in 2015, more humbly, in Leicester. That's where the first premises was. And it's a family-run business. The great-grandfather of the business was a chaiwala and had his own particular type of chai, which is what we seek to serve at our premises, and that's the USP for the premises. But you may know that it also involves food offer, which is naans and rolls, omelette wraps, rotis, bhajis, samosas. It's what you call desi snack food or street food that's provided on these premises. And it's really there in terms of this license for those who want to attend somewhat later, and also in terms of the non-standard hours for those who want to socialise later in a non-alcohol environment during the religious periods related to the Muslim calendar. The premises itself, just to say about that, we do operate a system of franchisees, but this particular premises is company owned, which means there is more direct or greater control by the company over it. Abdul Kadri, who sits next to me, will be visiting approximately twice a week, but he also has a manager on site at all times. There's 52 different sites currently in Britain. In London, there are sites in Ealing Broadway and Kingsbury, as well as in East London. But as I say, because this one is company owned, it will have the support of the central team in head office, who will have direct and greater control over the premises. We say, a proven track record, having operated these sites since 2015 in this country. You've heard from your licensing officer, there's no noise complaints related to the site of these premises. The premises itself has been open, obviously on the more restricted hours, for about 4 months, and we're not aware of any particular issues there. As to the nature of the application, of course, and I do emphasise this, it's not an alcohol premises licence that we're seeking, not talking even alcohol-led, it's no alcohol at all. A significant proportion of the clientele don't drink and won't drink. They may be of Muslim faith. And what we say is this adds to the diversity of the nighttime economy in this part of Kensington and Chelsea. We were granted a pavement licence, I believe, this morning, which has hours until 10 o'clock on a Monday to Sunday. Just so that we're all aware, there are a limited number of covers at the front. I think it's 3 tables, 6 covers in an area directly in front of the premises, which has got a designated sort of area which is not the pavement. And we've been granted a pavement licence by this authority for that. And in terms of the policy, just dealing with that, because the point that's been raised, I think, is paragraph 8.10 of your policy, that you will generally limit opening hours to midnight to maintain a balance between residential and commercial interests. Well, we do that. Your policy says that you might seek to cease activities before that, but that is, of course, a policy which applies to all premises, including those that are alcohol, pubs, nightclubs, and everything else in this area. We are a very small or relatively small premises. I think it's about 40 covers inside the premises. We've been granted our table and chairs licence for 10 o'clock only for the outside, and we don't serve alcohol. And what your policy goes on to say in paragraph 8.10 is it's each case on its merits on the particular circumstances. Finally, I'll just note that there's no responsible authorities who maintain a representation before you. Environmental Health have agreed the 6 conditions. Page 24 of your agenda has the email from the consultant who instructs me with those 6 conditions, but they're incorporated into the list that you have in your additional papers. But as a result of that, Environmental Health, who did expressly take into account residents' concerns, they are satisfied that that will not undermine the public nuisance objective, or in fact that relating to crime and disorder. They are, of course, recognised in the national guidance to be the experts in the area in terms of noise, and we endorse what they say and their position that they've reached. So that's really the application. I hope it gives you some background. Insofar as the additional conditions are concerned, they're incorporated in your list. I know there will be, a discussion on conditions. I think at this stage, I'm just going to note it's obviously a new premises licence where proportionality in terms of imposing further conditions should be considered, given this is not an alcohol premises. But we'll look at, I think broadly, we've looked at the conditions and I don't think there will be many issues. The question is, do they go further than they need to, and are they appropriate and proportionate in the circumstances? So I'll just quickly take instruction. Thank you, that's the application.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to remark just for the moment that noise is not only alcohol fueled. But thank you. Councillor Rossi, do you have any questions or comments?
If I have, the main question is, you say there is a delivery service, so how is the food going to be delivered? Because we do know that, you know, there are some restaurants where you have, I mean, are you doing it?
Go to the mic.
Okay, so is the company itself doing it, or are you using Deliveroo or whatever? Because we have restaurants, etc., in the borough where you end up with like a raft of sort of motorbikes, things like that, and they make noise and they cause disturbance to the residents. So I just wondered, A, if you're doing that yourself, are you using cars, bicycles, motorbikes, or what? And where would they be parked if they're yours? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll address that first, and then I'll bring in Mr. Kadri. We do, as with other delivery services, we use Deliveroo and Uber, and the majority of those delivery services that we use arrive on push bikes. We can't control that by condition or anything like that because it's a separate company that does it. But the reality in terms of how it works is the majority do arrive by push bike. all of the deliveries, so one of the additional conditions agreed with the environmental health officer is that deliveries will be through the front of the premises. The reason being, you'll know you're at the area better than me, but the residents are more at the back of the premises, and so we're required by condition to do it through the front. That's the way in which we operate. I'll just ask Mr. Kadri if there's anything additional.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, I just want to confirm that our business is majority of people who come to the actual restaurant itself. We do have a delivery service, but majority of our customers actually dine in store or come in store to do a pickup or collection. So I just wanted to add, we do get customers from the delivery platforms, but usually they come on push bikes, and yeah, I mean, we have no control of how they come.
Do you want to ask them about having a policy, a management?
Yeah, it's just been suggested to me that you perhaps could have some kind of management policy for how you monitor your delivery cyclists or whatever they are. Okay. Can I ask one further question?
I don't know if I can just flag them, that's helpful. I'm just looking at your list of conditions. I think proposed condition 13. If a delivery company is used, the premises licence holder shall provide a management plan to ensure that the neighbouring properties are not disturbed by the delivery person in their vehicles. I'm just flagging at this stage, I suppose that's what that's directed at. I'll take instructions, but... Yeah, I think with the caveats that I've mentioned, which is we don't have direct control over the people who come to pick up the deliveries, the condition itself is something that we could agree to. We'd come up with a delivery management plan to minimise any noise, and that would be signed off by the licensing authority as set out in that condition.
Okay, thank you. So I've got one more question. As you yourself say, the premises are quite small. You've got 40 covers inside and I think 6 outside. What would you do, or would it ever happen that you have people, sort of more people wanting to come? Would they have to queue to get in, or how would you manage that? Do you have a booking system? So what I'm trying to say is, would there ever be a situation where you would have had a lot of people outside who were not seated at the table?
Thank you. Basically, our kind of industry is QSR, which is quick service retail. Usually, a majority of our customers won't actually sit for more than 10 minutes. We have a very fast turnaround on tables. We're pretty much like a Starbucks, you know, where you just either grab your coffee or you grab your toasty, you have your food, and then you know, it's not somewhere people socialize. It's not like a restaurant. Where you know you want to wine and dine and you want to spend more time. Usually our customer journey within 15 minutes. The 7 minutes they get their food, 7 minutes they eat their food. Within 15 minutes they're out the restaurant. So we have a very quick turnaround. We never have a situation since we've opened where there's queues out the door. I hope that helps you. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Are you saying that people don't come and have a meal, sit down for an hour or something in the restaurant?
What was the question again?
From what you've just said, I'm concluding that you expect the majority of your customers not to sit down and have a meal for an hour, hour and a half.
Well, to be quite honest with you, majority of our customers take away.
Okay.
And usually the kind of foods that we serve, they're just wraps and rolls. So
I see.
There is occasions where, you know, there may be a meeting or somebody's having a talk, and they may spend longer than usual, but majority of our customer journey is that they're out the door and
I see.
they
Okay.
get back to what they need to do.
I think the point to make, Chair, is that it's not a restaurant in that traditional sense where people might stay for an hour and a half and have courses. It is more temporary than that, but where they do sit, they might be there for, say, 20 minutes, half an hour, rather than an hour. That's the difference, but it is 40 covers.
Because the dishes did look quite appealing on the website. Good pictures. As you know, most of Kensington, well, basically all of Kensington Chelsea is a residential area, as the Statement of Licensing Policy says in several paragraphs. I know you have premises in various locations around London. That's why, of course, we're so concerned about the hours and the noise, potential noise. And as I said, it's people can be loud, even if they don't mean to be loud, and they may not have any alcohol. Someone like me has had a meal and is standing outside at 1 o'clock in the morning talking to a friend. You can probably hear it three doors away or 4 doors away. So it's that we're also concerned about. Have you considered during Ramadan to have 6 days a week extended hours instead of 7?
Chair, there isn't an issue with that if the committee was concerned about it. I just want clarity on, I assume the Sunday is the concern.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, all I would say in context, as I say, my instructions are no problem with that. Ramadan, of course, is once a year for 1 month against the size of the premises. But of course, if that was a particular concern for Sunday around midnight, around 1 o'clock, then we would be happy. We would be content with 6 days a week during that period.
Right. Thanks.
For the
Sorry, Ramadan is 28 days.
hours.
It's 28 days a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, or whenever the lunar thingy is, cycle 28 and a half.
Crescent moon to crescent moon, so it's 1 month, yeah.
Thank you very much. I've made a note that you would consider it as a possibility. We'll get round to conditions or maybe to deliberations. On the question of courier plan, which Councillor Rossi mentioned, I know you mentioned that most of your, or all of your current couriers are using push bikes, but of course they may not always do that. I've seen a rise of the electric bike, which are equally noiseless, which is good, but you never know, it could be motorcycles. I see plenty of named courier drivers on motorcycles making a heck of a racket, frankly. Unacceptable, but you know, that's what it is. So that's also what the plan is for. And we do not micromanage a plan. We don't advise or tell you what to do in it. That's why we only ask for a plan that shows us that you have a way of managing it, because it's noise, a congregation of delivery drivers. And I know you may start off in a certain way, but things evolve. So we're trying to anticipate what may happen. So it's to cover you as well, not just the residents, is to make it easy for everybody that there's something in place. It's up to you what you do, but it's the idea is that we can see that you have thought about how to manage the drivers or the people so as not to cause a nuisance. So that's the purpose of just the invitation to submit a plan, whatever that is.
I'm grateful. I'm just to reiterate your condition 13.
Yeah.
We'd be content with that.
Thank you very much. I was just asking, did we hear correctly, you opened 4 months ago? About? Okay, I think we've more or less come to the end, Councillor Rossi. I just have one question. Given that you are expanding overseas and you start in Delhi, have you got a plan to open a franchise in Delhi, just like Patak has started selling in India? Just curious, personal interest.
Can I be honest with you? Just pre-COVID, we actually did a deal going back to India, you know, Delhi, where we actually started from. But obviously, because of COVID, we've had a lot of stunt in our growth. But it's something in talks at the moment. I mean, currently we're looking at. I'm off to Dubai tomorrow, so hopefully we're going to be getting that one over the line. After which, once Dubai kind of opens up, I think the rest of the world can come there as a point where we can showcase the business. We've got a lot of inquiries coming in from Singapore, Malaysia, Far East kind of side of the world. So, yeah, exciting times ahead.
Well, sounds good. I'll tell my mate in Dubai to look out for you, and I'll tell the guys, a couple of guys I know in Delhi to look out for you as well. How's that?
Just no problem.
Okay.
Please do come down. We'd love to entertain you.
Well, we do welcome these businesses. We just have to be careful that they integrate with the community, because that's our concern. Of course, we welcome new businesses, long life to existing businesses. It's just we have to take the residents into account, because, as I said, and as the policy says, we are a residential borough. But I think that completes it. Anything else? Right. I think no more questions from the legal, from your side. Then in that case, the objector can ask you questions. But please introduce yourself first.
Hello, my name is Paul Meitner. I'm the licensing representative for the Knightsbridge Association, and I also today represent the Brompton Association and the Egerton Square Association. I wish to say, starting off, that we don't object to the application in principle. It's just the particular questions of hours and noise relating to ingress and egress of patrons, and in particular the effect that that has or may have on people living above the premises in flats and in houses behind. And they have made representations to us as an association. I think about 3/4 of my original concerns have been allayed or removed by the alterations made to the application so far, and I'm grateful to the Council's Environmental Health team for putting down so many suggestions, which I hope very much will all be incorporated. The particular question is about late night operation during religious festivals. In principle, I don't have a problem with locations which operate till midnight, providing they're inside in soundproof premises. And we've already heard mentioned that the outside operation, tables and chairs on the pavement, will be ceasing at 10 o'clock each night, which I think is consistent with a number of other premises on that side of the Brompton Road. So the concern is about operation after midnight and about the management of people leaving the premises in particular, and crowds of people. And as somebody has already mentioned, noise in a quiet road can be heard tens, if not hundreds of yards away late at night, and this causes disruption to people who live nearby. So I think I would like very much to make sure that any conditions in terms of a policy for people entering and leaving the premises is specific, and I would suggest that that includes a notice telling people to be quiet when they leave the premises.
Thank you, Mr. Meitner. I think the applicant has noted that. If you want to comment, please do. Many premises, I think maybe all of them, put up a notice saying, please leave quietly. But of course, it also needs staff management to enforce that.
Just to respond briefly, absolutely, Chair and Mr. Meitner, just to be clear, condition 5 on your list, clearly legible notices shall be displayed at all exits from the premises, requesting patrons to respect the needs of local residents and to leave the premises and area quietly. That is a condition which we agreed with your environmental health officer. It's good practice anyway, but just to pick up what the Chair has said as well, we certainly take on board what's said, and that this is an area where there's flats above and around. It's something we'll certainly take back beyond that. It's not just about signs, it's about actually managing people. But as I say, the nature of the operation does not anticipate crowds of people outside or anything like it.
No, we understand that, but you only need a couple of people to come out, family group or something, so that's... But if you are going to actively manage that, and I think that actually brings us around to the training question, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you want? You can ask.
Yeah. So I think really what's required is a dispersible management plan. There has to be a plan in place. So as well as having a plan to look after the couriers and the people who are taking the food away, there has to be a plan in place to make sure when people, they leave quietly and they kind of go away quite quickly. So I think we need to have that as well. And obviously that's something that you'll have to sort of hone over time, because you'll have to sort of work out as you go along exactly, how you're going to manage that.
So we currently have a plan in place already with how we operate. We close our kitchen 1 hour before we close, so that there's only drinks available at that time, drinks and desserts. And usually we'll start clearing the tables half an hour before, so that everybody is prepared to kind of leave. Very kindly, our staff are fully trained on making sure that they let customers know to leave the premises when it's time to go, even currently. So that's not going to change, and we're more than happy to display that plan to you, to give you the reassurance that we're going to be on top of it.
Thanks. That's good. I mean, also that I presume it's already done, but the staff are trained to be aware of potential noise. Obviously, you don't have to worry about people being drunk, and it's unlikely that, especially during the holy month of Ramadan, that anybody would walk in drunk. We'd hope not, anyway. But they are aware of the environment that they're working in, because most of them won't live in the area or anywhere in Kensington, I suspect. So it's important they recognise that to understand where they are and why we are so concerned about it. That's all. I mean, it doesn't require much, I think. I mean, maybe a reminder every few months. And you get new staff in as well. Staff will turn over occasionally. So,
Can I say, Chair, that thank you, that's definitely taken on board. It will be a matter, it seems, of formalising what we already have into a condition if you see fit to impose it. But as I understand it, a condition along the same formula as that for the delivery management plan would be appropriate, which is effectively that we produce the plan and it is signed off by the licensing authority. That's the format of condition 13, so it would seem to make sense that that's...
Yeah, it'll be more or less like that. We're not going to micromanage your business. It's not our job. Plus, things can change. Is that nothing?
Okay.
Yes. Mr. Meitner, over to you to present your case. You have 10 minutes. It's 14:08.
Yes, I've probably already had 6 or 7 of my 10 minutes, I think. I think really to distill it down, I think the only difference between me and the applicant really comes down to the additional hours beyond midnight sought during religious holidays. And I think the view of the committee of the Knightsbridge Association is that there should be consistency, and really we would prefer them not to be open beyond midnight at all times. That's really the one thing, the one sticking point which I see remaining, assuming that we can have a properly working policy for the management of patrons as they leave the premises.
Thank you. Councillor Rossi, any questions? Mr. Meitner? Or
I think it's somewhere mentioned in the conditions that it would be a good idea to have regular meetings of the premises, have regular meetings with the residents' associations, and then a lot of these things can be kind of talked through, and I think that would be helpful for both sides.
And I think that's appreciated. And I would say that we haven't got any record of difficulties in the applicant's operations so far in the few months they've actually been there.
yes, the idea is that the applicant offers meetings. It's a pretty standard condition to offer meetings twice a year, which don't have to take place if the residents don't want it or need it. A question actually to the applicant, if I may. Are you going to be open during the day during the month of Ramadan, given the circumstances? What are you going to do from sunrise to sunset, in other words?
So we're currently open at the moment, but we still have a lot of people who are passing by and they come in for a taste. We're not so busy at the moment during the day, but I feel like it's an opportunity for us to see how it goes, and it's our first year there. So I can't really answer what's going to happen going forward, but I hope to believe that hopefully the brand will be, more recognized by other ethnicities, and hopefully they can enjoy while we're fasting.
Yeah, this is what I want to say, that particularly to Mr. Meitner, that it's pretty obvious that the observant customers, Muslim observant customers, will not be there during the day. So since the month of Ramadan goes round the solar year, there will be times of the year like now, and possibly a bit later, where the fast ends very late. So it could be that the eating time is only 3 hours or something, 3.5, 4 hours in the day, if they shut at 1, right? I don't know, sunset goes up to 10 something in the summer, doesn't it? So, 10 something to 100 hours is not a lot. And I think that's part of the thinking in the late opening. Is that right?
We've gone past the hard months now anyways, to be honest, so we're actually declining now. So sooner or later, over the next 3-4 years, Ramadan will, right now the times we need to eat before sunrise. So currently people do have a late night snack, but as the years goes on, that will only decline. So we'll be eating something like about maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. And that time we're not going to be open, so it's not going to affect anybody at all.
No, and of course, as the year progresses, the fast will end earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
But of course, that's a cycle, and since we don't really, we're not dealing with short-term periods here. This is a license given,
Yeah.
and I can't say forever, but it's a permanent license. So even if you sell the premises to somebody else, they inherit the license. So we have to think about that as well, not just what you're going to do as the specific operator. We have to think about
Absolutely, Chair.
the big picture.
I think
all.
the key protection for the community written into the Act is the review mechanism.
Is what, sorry?
Is the review mechanism.
Yes,
whereby,
indeed.
and this is a new premises licence application for that 1 hour on standard. If fears come to fruition and there are problems, we'll be back before you.
And indeed, thank you. And that reminds me, thank you for reminding me, which I like to say in every single meeting that I'm involved in, anybody who faces a problem, regardless of the premises, is to report it immediately, please. Not come into a hearing. I know Mr. Meitner's not doing it, but in general, not to come to a hearing and say, well, we've had problems for the last 6 months, or there's 5 incidents. We need to have the reports in the Noise and Nuisance Department as soon as it happens, preferably with video evidence, breach of license conditions. But even a notification will do. It doesn't mean that noise and nuisance team will come out immediately to stop the noise. I mean, there's a limit to what it can do, but we'll have a record, because every time we get a report before a hearing, we check that. We get a list. And you heard Mr. Phelan say there were no reports for the last 24 months. Of course, that's not entirely relevant in your case, because you've only had it for the last 4 months, I think you said. But that's the point. We do have a record of all complaints coming in. So the camera's over there at the moment because we've got a system failure and we don't get the full video of homing in on the speakers. But I'm just saying, if you've got a problem, report it. And there's a report a problem page on the council website called the Report a Problem, and you can Google RBKC Report a Problem, and the page comes up with 14 categories of complaints, problems, and one of them is noise and nuisance. So use it. And then, as Councillor said, we could always review the license, and we'd rather not.
Yes, and I should make absolutely clear, of course, complain to the council, complain to us as well. We hope to have our meetings. You'll have a dedicated phone number. That's in one of the conditions. Deal with us first, and we will deal with the problem, we hope. Obviously, what the committee should know is, as a long stop, there is the review mechanism.
Indeed. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we obviously don't want to have many reports at all. As Mr. Ranatunga said, contact them first. And that's the point of the residents' meetings, is to not have reports in the council. And any decent operator will accept a report at any time anyway, hence the phone number to the DPS. I hope, Mr. Meitner, that also allays your worries.
Yes, it's very helpful. And I'd just like to say, as an association, we do have regular meetings with a number of the larger retail operations on the south side of the Brompton Road. For example, Harrods, we have a quarterly meeting with them, and we find that very helpful just to make sure that things don't fester and build up over a period of time.
Exactly so, thank you. Councillor Rossi? And, right. Well, I guess we've discussed it all, but does the applicant have a question of the objector? Mr. Kadri, Ranatunga? To ask Mr.
No, I think I'm okay. I think we've covered everything. Just a final statement from myself is that we are going to have a dedicated telephone number that you guys can contact if there is any issues. I can rest assure you that it's more concerning to me than it is you. So I just want to offer that to you. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll now go through the conditions we've already discussed, but try and formalise them a little bit. Ms. Lemuzurier.
Thank you, Chair. Has everybody received a copy of the draft conditions that were circulated yesterday? Okay, thank you. So obviously this is a grant, and these are suggested conditions which the councils will go away and decide upon, and obviously they do need to be appropriate and proportionate as mentioned. Right. Can we go to number 1? I'm going to mainly direct this at the applicant, but obviously if the objector wishes to chime in, please do. Are you happy with my suggested condition 1 regarding the CCTV?
Yes, so far as I can see, it's a more detailed version of the CCTV condition. It looks to be standard, and so I don't think there's any concern with that.
That's correct.
It is standard.
Number 2, there's rubbish and refuse collection timings. Are you happy with those? Again, they're standard conditions.
Yes, I was just checking the hours, but yes, it's 2,300 hours and 7 in the morning.
Yes.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Of course, that includes also when you're opening late, so there'll be no collections or deliveries.
Right, turning to number 3, I'm aware that you had a planning permission for the change of use of the highway, so I was trying to tie in times with that planning permission as well. Are you happy with the first part? No food or drink shall be consumed by customers in the front forecourt area unless seated at tables. Thank you. And then this second condition, I know you've just mentioned that you've got your pavement licence today, and I think the terminal hour is 10 p.m, I think you said, to bring them in Monday to Sunday. So I think this condition needs to be tweaked for Monday to Sunday. So the front forecourt area shall be kept clear of all customers between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. Monday to Sunday. Are you happy with that variation? Rather than 2,300.
Sorry, can I just check?
Yeah.
I understand the pavement licence, I think, was granted this morning.
Okay.
My instructions are, I think it was between 8 a.m. and 10 o'clock in the evening. Is that right? I don't know if that's right. That's my instructions.
Paul, are you able to check any pavement licences that are granted today?
I can have a look. It will take me a couple of minutes.
Okay, fine. Can we come back to that one? So we'll try and tie it in with the pavement licence, so it's all tidy.
Yes, I don't know. Just whilst I'm on.
Okay.
Sorry, whilst I'm on that. So, as I understand it, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, that's what the pavement licence hours are. Mm-hmm. The condition we agreed with environmental health was to remove or render unusable the tables and chairs between 11 and 8. Now, I'm not clear if that's two separate things, because one is the pavement licence allows you to put the tables and chairs out for that period, as I understand it.
Yes.
Can you leave them out? That's what I'm not clear on, because it seems the environmental health officer is directed at a different thing, which is actually when you make them unusable or remove them, and that's one set of hours, whereas the pavement licence seems to be a different set of hours.
Yeah, I think what we need to do in these kind of scenarios, obviously the planning permission is about the change of use, the pavement licence is about physically putting the items on the highway,
Yeah.
so you'll need to abide by that. we quite often come across these clashes, which is why we try and tie them up now, so there's no confusion down the line. So you'd have to take the tables and chairs in or render them unusable, depending on what your pavement licence says, by 10 p.m. But obviously we'll check that.
According to the pavement licence
Yes.
hours? Yes.
Correct. So subject
Okay,
to 10 p.m. being the terminal hour, Monday to Sunday, you're happy with that?
Yes, and I think the other thing was it's 8 o'clock in the morning on the pavement licence.
8.
Is my instructions. But
I
I'd
will
like
check
checked.
that point. Whatever is in the
Pavement
licence, we will
Yeah.
tie in, because your opening hours are, what time do you open?
Planning permission was from 9 o'clock. Yes.
Ah, right, yes, that's, yeah. So-
That was the issue.
Yeah, the issue is that
So the-
planning permission is from 9 and you can't really, you
Yeah.
can ask for anything else, but you can't actually breach that.
So technically, the highways licence might allow you to put them out, but you'd be in breach of the planning permission to put them out. So it's one of those, which is why I tried to tidy it up.
Yes, I think that what I would invite the committee to do is to impose the hours according to the pavement licence. We're dealing with licensing, and the pavement licence hours is what's most recently been granted under that legislation. Insofar as it's different from the planning legislation, which is obviously not this hearing, that's a matter for us to comply with as a planning condition, firstly, and or regularise if we want to. But for the purposes of today, I would invite the committee to give us the hours on the pavement licence, and then it's for us to sort out the position under planning. We'll be in breach of condition at the moment, it sounds like, if we don't comply with the planning condition.
Correct. It's for the councillors to
Yes,
decide.
the problem we have with this, appreciate, these are completely different legal frameworks, which is why you can do this. We try to work with trying to get it consistent. The problem is perception also for the outside. If you've got planning permission from 9 o'clock and you ask for 8 o'clock start, which of course you're perfectly entitled to do, it looks like mission creep. You'll then go back to planning and ask for 8 o'clock start. And that is mission creep, and a lot of people don't like that sort of thing. I mean, we see it in other cases, and this is something which we would try to avoid, because it's not in your own interest to do that, because there's always that suspicion hanging over there that you're going to do something. And that's why we would encourage you to consider, even if your pavement license starts at 8, which I think it does, to start at 9, to actually commit to 9 a.m. start.
Yeah, we just want consistency, as I think you do.
Exactly. And consistency is 9 start.
Well, we hear what's said. I'm not going to say anything more than that. As long as it's clear across all regimes, that helps us, and we're not going to die in a ditch over whether it's 8 or 9 in the morning.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll note the 9 as...
Or you can go away and decide.
We'll have to decide on that, but you would not be totally averse to it on the basis of what we've said. Thanks.
Thank you. So conditions 4 and 5 were suggested by yourselves, and I haven't made any amendments, so I won't change then. Condition number 6, this is regarding deliveries. I think there's also a separate condition which talks about the times of deliveries. Where's that? I did see that earlier on. Oh, number 9, I think, yeah. So are you happy with number 6, which basically says deliveries from the front?
Yes.
Fine, thank you. Going on to my suggested conditions. Condition 7 about no music or amplified sound to give rise to nuisance. Are you happy with that?
Yes, no
Thank
problem.
you. Condition number 8, no noise or vibration associated with the operation of plant to give rise to nuisance. Are you happy with that?
No problem.
Number 9, the deliveries, it ties in with the rubbish and refuse times. Are you happy with that?
There's nothing that says about... Sorry, the deliveries to the premises. What about the deliveries away from the premises, the delivery service? I don't think that's specifically mentioned in any of these.
So
It implies that they're coming to the restaurant rather than going from.
That will be covered by opening times and the delivery policy.
So I think condition 13, Councillor, is what we discussed on the delivery companies and the takeaway offer.
Okay.
But on condition 9, that's the point I would wish to clarify, condition 9, as I understand it, is about deliveries to the premises in terms of food. I don't know if, I suppose it does say deliveries to the premises, so that makes that sufficiently clear, perhaps.
That's incoming deliveries.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we note it just supplies to the restaurant, establishment. Should we add the words to make it clear that's what we're talking about?
Yeah, if you like.
Yes, as long as it's yes, as long as it supplies might be a useful word. Deliveries or
Okay,
or
so you're
supplies to
happy
the
with
premises.
number 9?
And that's fine in terms of the hours. Shall I pick up condition 13 now, or shall we get to it?
Let's get to it. Let's just
Thanks.
wade through them. Are you happy with your daily incident log for number 10?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you happy with number 11, just keeping the external areas clean, presentable and litter-free?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, could we add a point that it'll be swept after closing time?
Yes, currently.
Is that okay?
We do that anyway, yeah.
So it's okay if we just mention it in the condition?
Of course.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've got that as an additional one. Turning to number 12, this is holding the residents' meetings 2 times a year unless it's been otherwise agreed that they don't need to take place and at least 5 months apart. Are you happy with that?
So I just wanted to be clear on the square brackets. There's no problem with having at least 2 times a year, but beyond that, we're to directly notify. And is it to be all of those things in square brackets, or is it to be some of them or none of them?
The bits in square brackets are just up for discussion. So its standard is 2 times a year, unless otherwise agreed that one isn't needed.
Okay.
And the councillors like them to be at least 5 months apart, so they're not back to back.
The point is that you could, in theory, if that's not specified, in theory, you could have your 2 meetings within a fortnight, and you've complied with the condition if we don't spread them out. But you don't have to have a meeting if the residents don't need it. As regards the items in the square brackets, I mean, our suggestions would be, for example, you probably don't need to notify the ward councillors for this sort of thing. Because sometimes you do, but in this, these are standard words we put in for discussion.
I don't know.
But I don't think the ward, personally, I'm not sure that you need to notify the ward councillors. If they really want to be involved, they'll get the complaints from, for example, from the residents' associations.
I think given the representations we've received, it's clear the residents' associations are engaged.
Yes.
Can I suggest that it is limited to the local residents' associations?
Yeah, and I don't know, should we say residents within, what, 50 metres?
And residents within 50 metres? Or
Residents
Well,
within 50 metres of the premises.
I was going to suggest that it's limited to the local residents' associations. The concern I have about 50 metres is you then might get into discussions about who exactly, I mean, we've got, I think,
It's approximately, but
residents
you know,
above.
people upstairs are not
Yeah.
50 metres, they're 10 metres or however high the building is at the top
Yeah.
floor.
I
So,
would have thought that local residents' associations would cover it. If you are concerned about that, then
well, we often put in a radius in, which doesn't have to be big. In some cases, you might put 100 metres in, but in your case, I don't think it's necessary. It's too much. It's too much. But it's basically a few doors away, either side, and maybe at the back.
Can I
Sorry,
just say
Councillor.
that I think ward councillors would want to be involved if there were problems with a premise. I think, you know, as a regular thing, I don't think that ward councillors would want to attend or would be needed to attend.
yes.
But I have been to some where there have been, you know, as Councillor Schmetterling says, you know, when there's been a lot of complaints, then I think the ward councillor would want to attend, but not in normal circumstances.
Yeah, so I hope it's clear. I'm suggesting we don't include ward councillors and that it includes local residents' associations. If you feel it's appropriate and proportionate to say, and residents within 50 metres, can I just emphasise, obviously, breach of a condition potentially is a criminal offence if prosecuted. And whilst lots of these things we do, and we are agreeing to them, I do want it on record that I have said that, because if we say 50 metres and someone says they're 49 and we think they're 50, in theory, we're in breach of a condition. But if you feel that is appropriate and proportionate, we don't have an issue with it.
Mr. Ranatunga, you have raised a valid point there. So we're just thinking, one thing we could do is call it approximately 50 metres. So you're not tied to 50. It could be 45, I suppose. It depends on the doors. I mean, if there's a door that's within 55 metres away, let's say, then you don't have to notify them, even if they demand it. So we'll go away and think about it to try and introduce a guide, but that's flexible. So you don't get, you can't be pinned down.
I'm grateful for that. In that same vein, if I may, go back to condition 13, the point that's made validly is, can you sweep the front of the premises? And we do, which is why Mr. Kadri says, look, that's fine. But to have it on a condition means if on any one day, for whatever reason, we don't manage to sweep the front, we're in breach of a condition. Now, I hear the point that's made. We don't have a problem with it, but I would ask you to consider whether it's appropriate and proportionate to include those additional words in that condition when your legal officer has not suggested it. I assume that this is the standard wording, condition 11. And so
No, we have specified numbers of times per day to be swept.
Yes.
What the gap is between the times. We have specified quite a lot because of the circumstances of those premises. We don't do it every time. There's no point, but we do.
I fully accept that.
We do insert certain things very often.
And I think that might be premises specific, depending on if they're fast food, and litter might be a particular issue. We don't anticipate it is. At this stage, I just invite the committee to reflect on that.
Okay.
But as I say, it's not a big problem.
Happy to review it, but I'm not guaranteeing any outcome at this point. Thanks. Anything else?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Moving on to 13. Were you happy with the wording for 13?
Yes.
Thank you. 14?
Yes.
Thank you. 15?
I think the only concern I'd raise is having to have a phone number visible from the public highway. We'd certainly, through condition 12, we'll be keeping in touch with local residents associations and provide the number anyway, and we can provide the number to the people who are approximately within 50 metres. But to have it on the front window so that anyone can see it, we're just slightly
It is one of our standard conditions. It's just if passers-by have a problem, say for example if there's noise late at night, they can phone there and then and deal with the issue rather than having to go through the Residents Association meeting twice a year.
We're just wondering if we could have an email address rather than a phone number on the front.
People have suggested that before, but it won't deal with the problem there and then, obviously assuming someone picks up the phone, and most premises have a dedicated premises phone number rather than a personal phone number.
Yeah, okay. So I think we can put a phone number. So can I be clear? Because this is not alcohol premises, it wouldn't be a designated premises supervisor, would it? So a dedicated telephone number for the duty manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duty manager.
Yeah,
shall be
take out
displayed.
DPS. Okay.
Good point.
But can I just be clear? The duty manager suggests to me that there might be different duty managers on different days.
Might be.
Is there a generic phone number that could be rung though? I suppose it's down to the phone
that's
number.
what it's going to be. It's going to be. That's what I'm trying to say. Is it's
Okay.
it's not going to be. It's going to be a generic number, which
We rather have the shop number on there.
Yes.
So that
As long as someone picks up, that's the
so
thing.
then whatever messages need to be passed across usually get passed on to me, and then I can direct who wants to contact who.
The important thing is that somebody answers it pronto.
Yeah,
That's the point. So if you want to call it something else rather than duty manager, we can, but the important thing is, as Mr. Mazurier said, it's got to be answered. It can't ring and ring and ring, because it's problems. It's for problems.
Yes. If I can suggest a dedicated telephone number for the premises shall be displayed so that it's visible from the public highway and maintained for use by any person who may wish to make a complaint during the operation of the licence. So read as a whole, if it is a number for the premises, it does allow for it to be the contact to raise a complaint.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, obviously for people selling alcohol, there's always a dedicated premises supervisor there, as you know.
We just wanted to be clear with that, to be honest, that's all.
Fair enough, thank you. It's sort of unusual. I mean, there are quite a few premises that do not have alcohol licenses, but, you know, in the total context, there's not that many, so we have to adjust the conditions accordingly.
And I think there was just a couple of other matters. We've covered the sweeping. I was just going to, I mean, I'm aware that you're not selling alcohol, but presumably you still will do staff training under the terms of the Licensing Act 2003. So I was thinking of possibly adding a condition to that effect. Would that be acceptable?
Is that appropriate and proportionate for a 1 hour late night refreshment, standard hours premises?
What would your staff training cover anyway? Presumably you do staff training in any event.
Yeah, so we cover health and safety, we cover level 2 food and hygiene, we also manual handling, chemical training on how to use chemicals, disposal training of how to dispose waste, customer service, you know, operations training. So yeah, those are the kind of trainings that we do.
I mean, through the conditions that we've discussed, there will also be a condition, right? There's condition 7 about music and sound, noise and vibration under 8, and other conditions which we will have to bring into, to a degree, to some sort of training. But it's not, I would say, justified or appropriate or proportionate on these types of premises to have a condition like that. And it's not something, I note, that was suggested or that I've actually considered before just now.
Okay, we'll let the councillors go away and decide upon that. And obviously I'm aware that it's usually aimed at alcohol training, which isn't the issue here, and I do appreciate that. And the only one other thing which we've just touched on, I don't know what your viewing on this is a dispersal management plan type condition.
Fundamentally, I think I've said during this hearing that condition 13 is the delivery company condition, and a similar format for a dispersal management plan could be the way you could do it. But I still, on that one as well, come back to what is this premises? It's not a pub, it's not a nightclub, it's not a bar, it's not. It's not anticipated that there will be any dispersal issues. Remember, you've also got your condition about no food or drink should be consumed by customers in the front forecourt area unless they're seated at tables. Now, with all of those protections, is it really appropriate and proportionate for us to devise a dispersal management plan when we're not anticipating concentrations of people outside anyway? If in the next 6 months there are problems, if we're granted this licence, then I'd hope we'd do it anyway, but we're not anticipating there to be. It's not that nature of operation. Not a kebab shop or a KFC or, you know, where you might have that sort of issue.
Okay, thank you.
Whilst we appreciate what you've just said, as I mentioned before, this is a license for the premises, whoever is in it. So having a simple dispersal plan might be a good idea, because you may never need to refer to it, as it were. But somebody else may come in who needs it every day, if you see what I mean. So, I mean, would that not be a possibility? Something very simple, not anything detailed. Just to note there's a dispersal plan. It covers you for changes, and it covers anybody else who comes in. Yes, sure. Councillor.
Also, I mean, as far as residents are concerned, I think the main issue will be around noise, and it will be about people leaving the premises late at night. And even though, you know, you don't intend to have very many people outside, if you've got 40 covers inside, if people, you know, just go out in a group or something and they're chatting, whatever, then that will cause disturbance to the residents. And I think, I know you are not selling alcohol, but it is pretty standard nowadays that when we grant licenses, that we do ask for dispersal management plans. I think that's quite normal these days. It's normal that we, most of our licenses, we would require one, I think.
So, following on from Councillor Rossi, how about this sort of phrasing? The premises shall operate a dispersal policy and all staff shall be trained in its implementation. How does that sound? It's
Well,
not,
I think that's...
not committing you to anything specific.
Well, if I may say so, I think your condition 13 requires us to have a delivery management plan, and for a copy of that plan to be served on the licensing authority. That's the format of that condition which is deemed appropriate and proportionate. I would urge the same format for a dispersal management plan. We will devise one and we will serve it on your licensing authority. Now, what that means is, if that breaks down at any stage, I mean, firstly, it will, we hope, be flagged in our biannual meetings with residents and or complaints to us. But if it breaks down, it allows us to deal with that first. The condition that I think has just been offered up is more onerous than that, because it requires us, I think, to implement, I mean, I've heard that for the first time, but I think it's to implement and train on a dispersal management plan. I hear the point that it is standard on your premises licenses. This is not your average premises license. It's not an alcohol premises. It's not a large premises. It's not a premises that operates beyond midnight, so on standard hours. So that's why I said the format in condition 13, i.e. we devise one and it has to be notified to the licensing authority, gives enough transparency for that to be appropriate and proportionate. That's what I would say.
Well, actually, I thought what I read out to you was less onerous because it doesn't require you to submit anything to us. That's the point.
Can I just hear the wording again?
The premises shall operate a dispersal policy. I mean, we can change it to introduce, operate a dispersal policy, and all staff shall be trained in its implementation. It doesn't say anything else. It doesn't say please submit it.
No, but it says shall operate a dispersal policy. So if something goes wrong, I assume what happens is you'll say, well, where's your dispersal policy? Clause 4.3, you didn't comply with that, criminal prosecution.
Yeah, but we don't. But I mean, if you're going to do a dispersal plan,
Yes.
as sort of following the wording of condition 13, isn't that
No, you
the
see,
same thing?
No, because I think that's why condition 13 is appropriate and proportionate. It requires us, if we're using a delivery company, to provide a management plan with the objective of ensuring neighbouring properties are not disturbed, and to lodge that with the council. It's one stage before that. So we say, look, we've got a delivery management plan. Here it is, licensing authority. That's it. That's what the condition requires us to do, and that's our criminal prosecution if we don't do that. But in terms of actually operation and implementation, we're not on the hook for a criminal conviction if we fail to comply with one clause. And that's absolutely right, because we're not a pub.
Okay, can you just clarify? You would be saying the premises licence holder shall provide a dispersal management plan, etc., and that will be given to the council. Is that what you're saying? Yeah? Well, I think
Correct.
that's okay.
So, and I don't mind it even saying a dispersal management plan to ensure that neighbouring properties are not disturbed by noise outside the premises, because that will be the objective of it. But my point is the reach of the condition is that we provide that to the licensing authority and they have it on record, but there is no requirement under the condition to be complying with every letter of it, subject to criminal prosecution. Obviously we will do that, but we shouldn't be on the hook for a criminal conviction if we're in breach of one part of it. And that's why your condition 13 is worded the way it is, and that's why I would agree to a similar wording, that format, for a dispersal management plan.
Okay, I think that's fine.
All right, we agree. We'll think of something that will match that. Right, no more questions from a legal advisor. Perhaps I can ask the objector, Mr. Meitner, if you've got anything else to say or to add. Are you reasonably happy with the way it's gone?
I'm reasonably happy, subject to resolving the points already discussed.
Sorry, would you like to just mention quickly for my own benefit which point you mentioned?
Okay,
you
so
mean,
in particular, it's about getting those policies lodged with or agreed with the council, whatever lodged or district, whatever that means. And secondly, just the council reaching a landing on what the terminal hour should be during religious holidays.
Okay, fair enough. Right, I think we've come to the end of the formal proceedings. We are going to retire to make a decision. And governance, by the way, do you have any comments, any observations to make?
No, thank you, Chairman.
We will not be announcing our decision at the end of our deliberation today. We have up to 5 working days to issue our summary decision, which will then take effect immediately. Soon after that, I don't know how soon, but I hope quite soon, we issue the full decision, which is essentially the summary decision plus the minutes of the meeting. We will try not to delay it too much. It depends on the other work that's going on, of course. And the time limit for appealing the decision will not commence until the full decision has been sent to the parties. I think that's standard legal stuff. And just in case I think I said it already pretty loudly, but I'll say it again. If anybody's got any objections for any premises, is to report them immediately. Mr. Phelan, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Just bringing it back to an earlier question regarding the pavement licence. Just to confirm that there was 3 tables and 6
Speak into the
chairs.
microphone, please. Sorry.
There were 3 tables and 6 chairs approved